So, is Sweden losing its middle class? Uh, I don't know if you have paid attention. I'm basically sowing, or not sowing, I'm repotting tomatoes, but I figure I could address this as I'm doing this. Is Sweden losing its middle class population? In the past few years, there has been quite an increase in cost of living in Sweden, and I know it has been the same in a lot of countries, but the salaries, they say that the salaries in Sweden will kind of increase for the ones who have a job. Now, there's not everybody who have a job, and this is a big problem in Sweden, but the Prime Minister and people in Sweden, they don't really care. The fact that there is a lot of jobless people, including students. A lot of students in Sweden, those who are students, they are, unless they are working part-time, they are jobless. And they are also living off loans, student loans, that probably will be very difficult for them in the future to repay. And unless they choosing like any form of studies such as doctor, but even doctors, I don't know the future for doctors when they will have AI more and more doing stuff, if it's worth still to study to doctor, I don't know. But yeah, there has definitely been an increase in unemployment in Sweden, and I think also because everything has gotten more expensive and there's no housing options. Even if you get a job in a city somewhere in Sweden, you cannot just go there and live and do the job because you're gonna have nowhere to live. So you are homeless if you find a job in a city that you would have to move to. Also, if you are jobless and you're looking for jobs in Sweden and you need to, for example, do an interview in another city, you don't have resources to go to that city to do the interview because it costs a lot of money to go somewhere in Sweden, and currently they don't have trains working. Like if you want to go to middle Sweden for a job interview, it's gonna cost a lot to do so because of the train delays and the cost of it and everything. And as well, even if you get the job, there is still not gonna be any housing, most likely. Sometimes the employer will say that they can solve housing, but mostly they don't. And as far as I noticed lately, there has been a lot of scams in the job search. Like there's both scams in those who looking for jobs, but there's also scams in the ones who are hiring and looking for stuff. And there can be different ways this happens, but I just notice it's what it is. Also, when you are selected in a process of like job, hire thing, and they often ask you to do some kind of test, logical test, personality test, and there can be like 120 questions to them, and you don't know exactly what they are after. If they want an extrovert person, if they want an introvert, or whatever, But I noticed they do not necessarily choose introverts for jobs if you do a personality test. So yeah, there are some minor problems in the job market of Sweden. Also, there's like typically a lot of areas in Sweden are very underdeveloped. Like you don't have events, you don't have fashion, you don't have even shops. The shops they have is like supermarkets at the best, but they don't sell, for example, makeup brands. They don't sell bookshops. They don't have very niched kinds of shops, and that is because there is no need for it. You know, there's no people to buy the stuff, and even if there are people, they just don't buy anything because it's so expensive. So there is very underdeveloped the business, the kind of small businesses and stuff. And I had some person who had her own kind of health kind of inspirational company, and she was trying to come to my area to have like a some kind of lecture about it, you know, about health. And she didn't come because there was nobody who signed up for it. Even if there were some people, there was, at the end of the day, nobody wanted to attend. Maybe because it was expensive, maybe because they, you know, they maybe just don't have the money for it. Maybe they didn't get the information that it was possible to go for. So there can be millions of reasons. But what I'm trying to say is that yes, I think the Swedish middle class is diminishing very quickly. And I see this especially like at women who try to live in Sweden. They, like younger women, are never gonna be part of the middle class. And anytime I'm reading the newspaper, I read horror stories of parents, you know, like middle-aged people with small kids, and these people have no money, no resources to afford food and clothes and even housing or anything. They are poor people, you know. And the government in Sweden, they have some kind of money for them, but it's not enough in this inflation, like in these price ranges that are in Sweden. So people live very poor life, very depressed lives. I think a lot of people in Sweden, you know, you don't have anything to do, free time. There is no, they don't have like nightclub. For example, in Dubai, they have a lot of free time, leisure activities. You can go to the nightclubs, you can go to the bars, you can go to the parks, you can go to all kinds of events they have going on, to music festivals and every single thing, like to the beach. There's like all kinds of these things you can go to. They have a lot of workout activities, loads and loads of things, social events there, you know. But in Sweden there is zero, especially unless you live like in maybe Östermalm in Stockholm. You maybe have some access to that, but typically in Sweden I feel like they only have for elder retired people activities, but not for younger people at all. And it's just a country where a lot of people who are young, they will, especially women, they will move abroad to a better place to live, to have a lifestyle where they can enjoy themselves and have access to social activities, and also maybe earn money of them for themselves and to have somewhere to live. Because in Sweden, most women do not have their own home. And I just want to say something. I think every woman should have their own home, to own a place that is their own home. Like, for example, a lot of Arabs that I know, from Egypt, from Jordan, from, you know, other Arab countries, unless they have been in a war, you know, because it's common typically there. But I mean, unless they've been in a war, a lot of Arab women, they do have their own kind of home, you know, somewhere. Because whatever happens, they can always go somewhere where they have roof over their head, you know. They don't have to be in a, like in a relation to have a home. They can just, you know, have a home of themselves. And I think in Sweden, even in my area in Sweden, there's like, I would say, probably 80% of all the women who lives in my area and in other parts of Sweden, they only live under a roof thanks to a relation that they are forced to be in to continue to have a roof over their head. They don't have their own roof over their head because they don't have the money for it. They cannot afford it. So they are staying in some kind of relation to have that. And I think that is absolutely devastating for entire society. It's devastating for equality and everything. I think every woman should have their own home and be sure that it's their own place and nobody can own it for them, you know, because something happens and relations never last forever, you know. Every single relation, whether you say it's lifelong or not, is gonna end, you know. You cannot base income streams or housing because of a relation. You need to have it yourself, especially if you are a woman. And I think in my area in Sweden and entire Sweden, there's a lot of women who does not have this. They have some kind of relation which they getting roof over their head and they getting economic support means from. And this is rubbish system for women to be in. I think it's not sustainable over the long run because most men in Sweden are more likely to have jobs. They are more attractive in the job market. You know, sometimes I have, just to try it out, I have like done a job application where I have written that I'm a man and I have another name, just to see if my education will be more attractive as a job candidate if I say that I'm a man. And yes, it is, apparently, because I tried this a few times. So whenever I say that I'm a woman in the job market, I'm not even, the employer is not really gonna pick me. But I have tried same thing, saying with the same education and everything, saying that I'm a man and sent the job application, and I have gotten like, you know, response from the employer because that I said that I'm a man, you know. So it's not equal at all in Sweden, I would say. I mean, in Saudi Arabia, most women have more money in their own pocket than any woman have in Sweden. And most women in Saudi Arabia have housing that they owning in some way, that it's like they are insured that it is their own housing if something happens, you know. But in Sweden it's not like that. There is I heard a lot of horror stories of young women who are unable to end a relation because they don't know where to go, they don't have anywhere to live, they will be homeless, and they don't have enough income to have their own housing. And it's not an individual problem, it's like a society kind of problem in Sweden. And I definitely think that, you know, the middle class is kind of disappeared in Sweden. Because if you look at what can a woman who is like 35 years old, what can she buy? Can she sustain herself on her own income? Can she have her own house? Most likely she cannot. It's just a fact in this country. And I see that a lot of people nowadays also, they don't have like a lifelong job. They have like gig kinds of job, like they have short-term contracts of jobs that ends and then they are jobless. And also Sweden have recently, because Sweden have been supporting Ukraine, which is, I don't agree on doing that. But Sweden, because Sweden have problems internally in this country and they don't do anything about it. They only supporting Ukraine, but it's not going to help these problems that are in this country. And, you know, because of these past few years that have been, the kind of progress have been worsening for a lot of people, I think, especially like for younger people. They are probably, a lot of people who are jobless at this point are not gonna find a job in Sweden for the past next 5 years, because the job market is dead in Sweden. And as I said, if there is a job available, it might be in another city or somewhere where you don't have anywhere to live. and you cannot afford to travel to that city to go for an interview or to even start a job. So it's just gonna be impossible for most people. And I don't see any solution from Sweden government, but they increasing most prices on electricity. For example, for where I live, I don't have a fridge. I have like an old fridge from the 80s that I let Airbnb guests use, but I don't use it myself. I storing all foods that I eat in the basement where it's kind of cold, and I don't have a fridge, I don't have a laundry machine, I don't have a dishwasher, I don't have any, comfort products, with that consuming electricity. I do have grow lights because I try to grow my own food, so if I will be in Sweden, I might have something to eat, at least, and that's why I have grow lights. But I'm just saying that without all these, like a fridge, laundry machine, I still pay 300 euros for electricity for November and December. So 2 months electricity here is 300 euros. And I think it's kind of expensive because when I was in Russia, I went to visit in Russia, I heard, because I asked about it, I asked, what do you pay for electricity here with the fact that you have a laundry machine and you have your own place here? How much electricity bill will it add up to? And they said like it's around 4 to 5 euros a month. So approximately 10 euros per 2 months, comparing to me paying 300 euros for 2 months. And I don't even have the luxury of a laundry machine. I'm basically using a laundry machine at another house for as long as it's possible to do so. And I don't have a dishwasher. I don't have, stuff like this. So it's and this year in Sweden in January, the electricity have apparently become even more pricey. So I don't even know how expensive it's gonna be this year with electricity. I'm thinking about cutting down on heating. I have a heating pump that kind of blows in hot air. I'm thinking about not using it, basically. Especially I will switch it off as soon as the weather outdoor allows me to do so. I will not keep it on at all. So yeah, definitely I think Swedish middle class is gonna disappear. Sweden doesn't have, in my opinion, development in these new technologies such as AI and anything else, and they are not producing that many stuff. They have a few things they're producing, but these kinds of tiny markets where for what they are producing can be like ended by other actors. And I think also they have maybe some nature resources that will be the only thing remaining, but I think most business in Sweden is kind of dead, to be honest. And unless you're a pizza bakery, but they will also not earn so much if people cannot afford to buy pizza, for example. And this is the only kind of restaurant we have where people may still buy something from a restaurant from, unless it's a Thai restaurant. But yeah, I think, to be honest, it's gonna be, especially women, I think they're not gonna be part of the middle class. They're gonna shift down in Sweden to be part of the poor population. And these people will most likely be prone